Welcome to the Change Life Destiny podcast, where healthcare is being reimagined one conversation at a time. We spotlight the people, innovations, and ideas moving us from sick care to self-care and from reactivity to true prevention. A place to connect, learn, and build a new future together. Get inspired at changelifedestiny.com. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Change Life Destiny podcast series. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today we are here with Dallin Hardy of Hardy Nutritionals. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you and learn more about your company. I met some of your team when I was in Florida at a conference, and they are just the most lovely people I've ever met. Let's dive in. So, Dallin, tell us a little bit more about you. We want to know your story. We want to know how you found yourself in this time and space in the health industry.
Yeah, Hardy Nutritionals is a family business. You might have noticed the last name. When I was a little kid, though, I didn't want to be. So I'm a biochemist. I have a degree in biochemistry and food science. I'm one of the scientists at Hardy Nutritionals. We have several. And I liaison with researchers and stuff. And so that's how I come to be, or that's my education. But when I was a kid, I wanted to actually be an engineer, a mechanical engineer. I wanted to build flying cars. And then a couple of my siblings got severe mental illness. I was in my mid-teens at the time, so 13, 14, 15. And a brother had a psychotic break. He was in high school, got a schizophrenic diagnosis, and then a sister who had left home, an older sister who had left home and got married, had a child, and then her husband died of bladder cancer like a few months later. So she had postpartum depression, and then added stress of that, she was his caregiver while he passed away, lost a lot of sleep in addition to she wasn't getting hardly any with the baby anyways.
Right.
And that drives the brain too. So she had postpartum depression with psychotic features as well. And so my brother was living at home, and then my sister came back after her husband died to live at home with her infant. And so I played psych nurse for about 2 years straight. And
as an adolescent?
Yeah. And with my brother, like, he was pretty schizophrenic, like really delusional and stuff. So we would take turns. I have a pretty big family, and the siblings would take turns staying up all night. He had to be watched 24/7. So one night out of the week, I'd stay up all night and make sure he didn't run away outside and do something crazy and get in trouble with the police. I'd just sleep in school the next day, kind of thing.
Oh my goodness.
Catch up. But what happened is I watched in those settings, my dad had, so we need to go back a little further. My dad had been in animal nutrition for many years before, 20 plus years. And then he had recently, before this time, thankfully, it was before my siblings had these mental illness issues, he had switched to human nutrition, and he had formulated supplements for mental health in humans. And then we applied those supplements at home, and I actually had the job of administering them to my brother, had him swallow the capsules. And it's a very unique supplement. So it was 18 capsules a day for my brother.
Whoa.
My dad got it more space efficient over the years, and now Hardy Nutritionals has the equivalent formula in 12 capsules a day. But I remember one time I was trying to get him to take a dose. It was 6 capsules 3 times a day with meals. And one of the doses he just wouldn't take. He'd get these delusions, and he was convinced I was trying to poison him. And it took me 3 hours to convince him to take this supplement it's just vitamins and minerals. But anyways, so I watched that happen, and it changed my whole paradigm of my career. I was like, people can live without flying cars. They really can. They have for millennia. But what they can't live without is their sanity. And not only is it that those individuals, my siblings, were affected, but it affected the whole family. It pulls you all in and down, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a massive burden. Mental health issues are a massive burden, even that extends beyond the person who's actually experiencing them. And it's the world to them. Like it totally takes over their life. So you can live without flying cars, but not without a functional brain. So that's what sent me I switched. I was like, my career is going to be in nutrition like my dad, and eventually decided to come back and work for Hardy Nutritionals and stuff. But yeah, I decided I would study biochemistry so I wouldn't just know. I wanted to go to a harder science so I could understand nutrition really from the ground up. And so that's how I got here.
Wow, what a
Might be an
so
involved
okay, so how
more
many
involved answer
oh,
than you
I
were
no, I
asking
love
for.
that, I love that. The more involved, the better, because then we get to know you, and that is the whole point of this, is to get to know you first. How many siblings do you have?
I'm the 10th of 13. So, yeah,
Wow, that's a
yeah.
lot of siblings,
We
man.
actually grew up without a television. My parents didn't invest in that. With all of this the research around screens and what it does to kids, that we know of now, I think it
Mhm.
was a wise choice. But in the town where we grew up, it was a joke. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
13
All the
kids,
Hardy
they don't
kids
have
don't
a
have a TV.
television.
Oh my goodness, but look at where you are now.
Yeah.
Okay. So fantastic. So we skip ahead a little bit. Your dad has created this incredible supplement. How's your brother doing?
He's great. He works for Hardy Nutritionals, and I always tell people if you lined up our family, all my siblings and stuff, and I had you guess which one of us had the schizophrenic diagnosis in the past, you'd pick me before him, or maybe it would
Wow.
be random chance. Like
Yeah.
your guess would not be much better than a random number generator because you really can't tell. So
Wow. And then, of course, like you just said, this is not just affecting him and his well being. This is affecting the well being of your entire family and extended family. I'm very
yeah.
sure. That is incredible. Okay. So let's dive into the tech. Let's dive into this product overview. So tell us why Hardy Nutritionals is so different and special.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to my dad's animal experience too. So, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, after the Second World War, agriculture really took off. Lots of, you know, chemicals were added and big ag kind of
Hmm.
grew out of that time. And then in the animal industry, what they started discovering and implementing in these years was the animals would do a lot better if you supplemented essential nutrients. So
Okay.
essential nutrients obviously are those things that it's in the word. Your body can't make them, so they're essential. You have to take them in dietarily because your body
Right.
cannot produce them. So this is and for plants, the only thing that's essential is minerals. They get them from the soil. They make their own vitamins, plants do. But for higher level organisms like us, um, then we have some of these organic molecules, the vitamin molecules too, that we can't make. And we rely on the lower level organisms to do that for us. And so we have all these essential vitamins and minerals. There are essential proteins too. There's some amino acids. About 9 of the 21 to 23 proteinogenic amino acids
Hmm.
are essential. Your body cannot make them. And then there's a couple of fats, essential fats that are. Then obviously water is essential and stuff. But those are as far as the micronutrients go, the bulk of them is vitamins and minerals. And one of the things they figured out in animals was that if you they would balance the macros like protein, carbohydrates, fats based on the
Hmm.
blends of like soy and other grains to feed like the hogs or the cattle. But the micros, they were finding that they could reduce veterinary costs. They could get animals to market faster. And if you have a 10,000 cattle feedlot, its operating costs are well over $1 million a day. So if you can get to market one day faster, you're saving $1 million. So there's big
Wow.
money in health for animals.
Sure.
And so they figured out like it's pretty inexpensive to just add all these vitamins and minerals, blend it in with
The
the
food.
macros with the feed, and you just get way better health. And so that's where my dad was coming from. And then when he switched to human nutrition, and there's a story behind that's previous to the ones I told about my siblings that I won't go into, but when he switched to human nutrition, he looked around at the market there and he's like, wait a second, this is all backwards. So you're only valuable to the doctor when you're sick. Okay. So there's the incentives are perverse because on animals, you want them to be healthy. It
Right.
saves you money if they're healthy, but there's no money in prevention in humans. And then also, what are people doing? They're tinkering around with single nutrients and
Mm,
like low doses. What the heck? This isn't what we do in animals. That makes no sense. Metabolism is so complex and you need all of these essential nutrients. And what are the chances if you're deficient in one that you're not deficient in another?
right.
Really?
Right.
So like this makes no sense. And so my dad's big innovation was to take a broad spectrum well balanced formula of all the essential micronutrients. The vitamins and mineral portion turned out to be specifically those ones seem to be more impactful, at least when it came to mental health, than the proteins and fats. And
Mm,
so our main formula now 12 capsules a day. So he had a broad spectrum well balanced. So the balance is important, the comprehensiveness is important, and then the dose. And when you have a balanced broad spectrum supplement like that, you can take the dose really high with no negative effects because you're not creating any relative imbalances. If you just supplement a lot of one nutrient, it puts strain on the other systems,
Ah,
um, and which also which rely on other nutrients. And so if you provide all of them, then all the other
they all
systems,
work together.
yeah, the other systems that rely on different nutrients to do different things, they can all handle metabolizing the higher dose of the one. And so that's the principle. And you just do that. And then what they found, my dad found when he switched to human nutrition with an interest in mental health, thankfully,
Mhm,
and that was in
mhm.
place before my siblings had their mental health issues. And that's what they found, is that we can just pervasively upregulate central nervous system function in a way that's really fundamental, that gets at root cause. And it's not like a targeted treatment. It doesn't treat any particular disorder, but it helps all of them. It helps the symptoms of all these disorders. And that was the big innovation. And Hardy Nutritionals, the bulk of our sales is that one formula. And we carry other products that are sort of around it. In psychiatric protocols, they support it because you'll have people with, here's a big one, you'll have people with gut health issues. You can take all the micronutrients you want in your mouth, but they aren't getting into your body because you can't digest it well.
Right.
You have stomach acid issues, you have dysbiosis of the microbiome or whatever. And so we over the years we've learned, okay, so we need some other products sometimes to get the results out of the essential nutrients, but
Yeah.
it's really those essential micronutrients that are the key.
That's what I was thinking as you were talking. I was like, okay, I've heard the adage say that yes, you can intake certain supplements, but sometimes it just creates really expensive urine. And so if you're not digesting these things, if your body cannot absorb them for whatever reason, then you definitely need that. So that's wonderful that you have created this solution so that those that are really having those major gut problems can still absorb these essentials. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, and part of it's absorption, I think, and part of it, we have enough research now on this formula that we know a lot of the mechanisms behind it, which is fascinating to me as a biochemist, right? Because
Mm,
that's my training. But the part of it is the importance of for absorption, and part of it in all of the, so we have multiple randomized controlled trials on this formula now, and in all of the studies, there's 3 of the RCTs where they have, taken stool samples, and this is
okay.
placebo controlled, so the placebo and then the micronutrients, and the broad spectrum micronutrients in all cases affect the microbiome in healthy ways. And we've had clinicians who are using this in their practice. And there's one one psychiatrist, he reported, I have these patients, this one patient who, bipolar patient,
Mhm.
and titrated them off their medications, transitioned to micronutrients. He's more stable on that than ever was on the drug. And we used to meet every 2 weeks and talk about symptoms. There was a lot to talk about. And now we meet every 6 months and talk about the weather because he's doing so well. But this particular patient went to his general practitioner and got a round of antibiotics for some kind of sickness, that bug that he got.
Sure.
And his psychiatric symptoms started returning. And so the psychiatrist reported to us that he had to increase the dose of this broad spectrum micronutrient formula. We call it daily essential nutrients, by the way. So that's he had to increase the dose of daily essential nutrients by about 50% to bring this patient's symptom response back into control. And so
Wow.
and that lasted through the duration of the round of oral antibiotics and a little bit afterwards. And so that was a really clear sign that the gut microbiome is mediating, because these are essential nutrients for them too, right? Those bacteria.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was mediating the response. And it's a real clear clinical anecdote that validates what we know
Wow,
about the
that
gut
is
brain axis.
so fascinating
Yeah.
just how quickly antibiotics like that can affect one's gut health and microbiome. Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, tell me some more. Tell me some more case studies. Tell me something else.
We should really go into, we have a lot of testimonials on our website. You can, yeah,
Sure.
there's some fascinating things. There's one that's actually, we made a health professional webinar. You can find it on we have so much content. You can
Yeah.
find it in our videos on our website, but this isn't like one of the testimonials that's embedded in this webinar. There was, in the early days, there was this young child we're from Alberta, Canada. In southern
Okay.
Alberta, there's a bunch of these small towns. I grew up in one of them, in a neighboring town. And when my dad switched to human nutrition, and there was these really dramatic turnarounds for mental health for a lot of people in this area, and so the word really spread.
Mm.
And anyways, there was this. girl, she was about 7 by the time they started adding the supplements, but she had a partial placental detachment in utero. And
Oy.
so she was born very hypoxic, and that resulted in spastic quadriplegia. She had epilepsy,
Mm.
blindness. She actually responded a little bit to light when she was first born, and that went away. So anyway, she was blind, and she had to be on oxygen. And a feeding tube.
Oh my goodness.
Um, because of the quadriplegia. And so by age 7, she'd been on lots of medications, just like constant care, and hospitals are a very intensive home care, a great burden to the family.
Yeah.
And they started opening the capsules and putting these extra vitamins and minerals. And she was on a good parenteral nutrition, like the stuff that's meant for people who are on feeding tubes. It's supposed to be a
Sure.
comprehensive food, right?
Supposed to be.
And they added these just more vitamins and minerals to it, this formula. And the broad spectrum micronutrients really had dramatic effects. So within a couple of months, she was off oxygen. Within about 6 months, she didn't need the feeding tube anymore. Her muscles, her gastric muscle, swallowing muscle started working. So they took that out and she could eat food. And then her seizing diminished greatly. And eventually she started getting movement. So by
Oh my
age eight
gosh.
and a half or 9, they would strap her to a board so they could stand her up, and she started bringing things to her mouth as an 8-year-old, like a baby would, and exploring, like,
Uh-huh.
toys and stuff, and she even started to get vision. So it took about 3 years, and because she'd had a little bit when she was first born, and the
Mhm.
neurologist that looked at this case thought that the nerve wasn't dead, it was just receded, because she had a little bit when at birth, and then the
Yeah.
hypoxia had damaged it, and then it kept receding a little bit after birth, and that's why she was fully blind.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But these micronutrients appeared to have a neurotrophic, effect.
Wow.
Um, and she started with peripheral vision and then eventually full frontal vision. She died from liver failure. She'd been on lots of meds and stuff at age
Um,
11, but she had a really great life for that last 5 years. And that we have a couple of case studies published. We have lots of published studies. If you go to a studies page of our website, it's like way too many, 70
yeah.
plus articles
Oh
on
my
there.
goodness. Wow.
And 6 of them, I think 6 now, there's one that just got published. So it's either 6 or 7 that are randomized controlled trials, placebo controlled, but there's a couple of case reports. It's hard to have a big study on brain injury, right?
Sure.
Because they're all
Sure.
different. You can't
Yeah.
recruit similar patients, but
Sure.
the participants in the study. But there are a couple of published case reports on brain injuries, not like hers, different settings, sports injuries, or one was a military injury to the head. But there's dramatic response, not just to the psychiatric side, although that does improve the mood, the
Mhm.
problems that often come with traumatic brain injury, but also to physical recovery. And so I think evidence of Hardy Nutritionals, our focus is mental health. That's where our
Mm.
passion is, and helping
Mm.
people's mental wellness. Um, but I think these physical stories of traumatic brain injury and the dramatic response we get there as well
Mhm.
shows that this is really, I think that evidence is a little bit more the mechanism and the effect of neurotrophicity and plasticity that we're seeing.
Wow, wow. It just goes to show you how important these essentials are, right? How
Yeah.
important they are to a human body, and we're certainly not getting them from our food. That is for sure.
Not
So
enough,
amazing,
apparently, yeah. And
right?
some
Oh,
people probably have more demand too. I think, like, not everyone in our society is mentally ill and who eats the same way. So clearly some people need more,
sure.
and that could be genetic, and there's a lot of things that we've learned about that. But the at a high level view, it's just
Mhm.
it's hard to predict that. And it's hard to
Sure.
predict even if it is just a few nutrients that you're deficient
Yeah.
in. It's hard to
Yeah.
predict which ones they are. And so if
At
you
what
have this
time?
yeah,
Yeah.
and so if you have this broad spectrum balanced approach, then you can basically, with very little downside because you're not creating any imbalancing problems, then you
Right.
can just supplement that. And the ones that the body needs, it will triage and it will get them. The rest might be excess, but that we don't really have good ways of testing and measuring to know exactly how much you need of all of them anyways. And so it would,
Sure. But if they
for
all
the most
work
practical
together,
way.
oh, in
Yeah,
the best
exactly.
way for your body and your mind, then why not? Oh my goodness. Okay, Dallin. All right. So let's move to this question. So this is just really personally for you.
Mm.
Let's say that we're dreaming a little bit about the future of healthcare. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have in mind this vision of prevention and root cause. And from those perspectives, what is your vision of the future of healthcare?
Yeah, we actually outline this in our mission and vision and values on our website, and I truly do share it. So, what I would like to see is, and a lot of people share this in some ways. Mine is maybe just a little more specific. Everyone wants to see, let's do lifestyle thing first, right? But the
Mhm.
reality is, most people go to the doctor and get a drug first, right?
Yes, they do.
When they have
That's
a
what
mental
we're
illness.
trained to do.
But uh, what we see is, like, we have studies in depression, including during pregnancy, and they looked at second generation effects, and the babies were improved not only over similarly depressed moms, but over babies from healthy control moms. So these are like babies that are more than overcome the deficit of their mom having the depression and are healthier, objectively measured, than healthy babies. So, like super babies, the researcher calls them,
Yeah.
who did the study. And so we got depression studies, we got lots of ADHD studies, because and our research is all independent. We didn't fund it. So there are actually a lot of things that this broad spectrum approach helps with mental health. But
Mhm.
what gets studied is not determined by what it's best for necessarily. It's
Mm.
determined by what's being funded by funding agencies. And the
Sure.
last decade has had a lot of ADHD funding. And so we have a lot of ADHD studies. It's also good at helping ADHD, this formula, but the mood dysregulation and irritability in adolescence, we've got an adult ADHD studies, by the way. And then there's a smoking cessation study and PMDD study. And so it's autism study.
Mm.
So it's pervasively beneficial for basically anything central nervous system and related. We'd love to see some research because we've had some pretty dramatic results in like cognitive decline and the elderly. So what
Mm.
I'd like to see, so there's all these problems and people go to the doctor for them. And what I'd like to see is lifestyle things to come first, yes, but this specifically to be one of them. I'm biased, right? Because I
Sure.
sell the product. But I'll take the example of the ADHD study because it's the most replicated. So we have 3 RCTs, so randomized controlled trials against placebo, active versus placebo, 8 to 10 weeks. It varies between the studies in adults and children, replicated, and the results are incredibly the same, like the same kind of response. So it's very repeatable, very
Hmm.
reliable intervention. It's about in 8 to 10 weeks, about 50% of the participants are much or very much improved on clinician ratings. And
Wow.
then in open label, so what they do in randomized controlled trials is you participants join the study and they want to get the real deal, right? But they could be
Mhm.
randomly assigned the placebo, the fake.
Sure. Sure.
And so what they do is, to make it ethical, the ethics boards request that they do a open label extension. In other words, everyone after the blinded phase, then they open it up and everyone, it's called open label because they know what they're getting at that point. So there could be a placebo expectancy effect, right? Not that they eliminated in the blinded phase, but everyone knows what they're getting, but they all get access to the active. And
Mm.
there's in all of these ADHD studies, there's a distinct inflection point in the placebo group when they start taking the active, and they all start doing as well as the active group, the micronutrient
Got
group.
it.
And so they at the end of, but what it does is it allows data collection to go for a little bit longer. So we have an 8 to 10 week trial with 50% response rate, and then at the end of 4 to 5 months, then we have on every one of these studies a 2/3 response rate. It's about 66%. So think about this. What I want to see is everyone who comes to the doctor with a mental health eligible for a mental health diagnosis. They've got anxiety, they've got depression, and we've got studies on all of these. They've got ADHD, they've got autism, they got all of these issues. What if you just gave them broad spectrum micronutrients first?
First.
Then you remove from the whole rigmarole of drugs and their side effects. And there's very little side effects of this, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like no difference from placebo in most of the studies on any side effect. The only one that's been different from placebo, and it was in 2 out of the 6 or 7 randomized controlled trials, was a little bit of loosening of stools. And that goes away as they adjust to the supplement. So if you just titrate up the dose a little slower, but that's it. That's the only significant difference from placebo. And so that is a way different picture than psychiatric drugs.
Very.
And
Very.
so what I'd like to see is, let's do this first, and then we're going to take half to 2/3 of these people that would otherwise go down this road of medications. And by the way, the long-term outcomes for medications are not awesome. And it would take them out of that and have them basically side effect free, incredible response, much or very much improved. And it just shuns people out of this, because a lot of the drug thing turns into a revolving
Yeah.
door where people just
Oh, yeah.
keep coming back and modifying the dose, and we got to adjust this and maybe add another one because it's not working well anymore because you get
Yeah.
accustomed to it. Your body
Yeah.
never gets accustomed. Well, it's already accustomed to micronutrients, but it doesn't have that decreasing effect over time. It's quite the
Right.
opposite, actually. Over time, as your brain normalizes and your central nervous system metabolism and your mitochondrial function and all of that upregulates and normalizes, you actually need less of the intervention. So instead of
Mm.
the intervention, and it goes back to the incentives, the financial incentives in medicine, instead of the intervention leading to more intervention, which is more money
Mhm.
for the interveners,
Yeah.
then we see the reverse. So we see people get well, and after a few years of taking a full therapeutic dose, they can go down to maintenance dosing. The symptoms don't return. The illness doesn't return. And then they're just basically at that point, they're using this clinical formula at a lower dose, almost like a super awesome daily multivitamin. It's
Yeah.
a few more capsules than that. It's not a one a day. It's 6 maybe at that point because you're
Yeah.
half the clinical dose of 12. Then you can maintain on that and need less and less over time. And most people don't discontinue completely. And for myself, watching my siblings, never got a diagnosed illness. But after that, after my teenage years, my dad was like, all right, we're all going to take this in our family. So I've
Right?
been taking like 4 to 6 capsule a day dose of this formula for 20 years.
Wow.
And so that's where most people end up. So that's the long game. It's just you're going from a clinical state to normal. And that's the other thing people report when they get well using this method is the wellness doesn't feel like, oh, I have an illness and I'm managing it like people feel with medication. They're aware of that.
Right.
It's like wellness feels like normal, like it's gone.
Yeah.
And
Oh
it
my gosh.
and so
What a beautiful thing. Now, I do have one more question. That's usually the last question that I ask, but I have one more question. And I can assume that there is a correlation, but I would think that if you are addressing this way and your central nervous system is improving, then your autonomic nervous system also stays a little bit more balanced, doesn't it?
that's actually proven in the babies. So I mentioned in the one
Yeah.
study in the mothers with depression, um, that were given this for their depression and pregnancy. Then the researchers followed up with the babies and they actually compared them to two cohorts. So it was babies from healthy moms that didn't have depression, didn't have any parent issues. And a lot of those moms were taking regular prenatal multivitamins, by the way, about
Mm.
2/3 of them. And then there was another comparator group, and that was similarly depressed moms to the ones that were in the study taking the micronutrients. And they actually recruited this group out of people who tried to join the study, women who tried to join the study, but they weren't eligible because they were already taking pharmaceutical antidepressants. So that was the other comparator group, was similarly
Interesting.
depressed, but using pharmaceutical antidepressants instead of the micronutrients. And they looked at the babies. There's 3 cohorts of babies. And the micronutrient babies outperformed the babies whose moms had taken pharmaceutical antidepressants on every single measure. But they outperformed the healthy babies on
Mhm.
just some of the measures. And the
Mhm.
measures were motor control and autonomic stability into disturbance. So they could calm down faster after
Mm.
they were disrupted. They had better control over their bodies and their autonomic nervous system. So autonomic stability. This is like you've been holding a baby. If you hold a baby and it's breathing and then it has a little catch and it's
Oh,
breathing just randomly, that's a glitch in the autonomic nervous system. So those types of things, the all the stuff, the breathing, the heart rate variability, all of that stuff was improved over not just the babies whose moms had taken antidepressants, but also healthy babies, many of
oh
whose moms
my
had used
gosh.
regular prenatals. So that,
Wow.
yes, you're right. It definitely is. We
I
got
mean,
data for that.
it just seems like an all-around great thing to take Hardy Nutritionals in your life, and
Well, I think so.
there's your spot for the day.
I think everyone should. I do. Like I
Yeah.
believe this. And like all of our staff do too. And we've hired a lot of some of our staff members. If you call in and you want, so Hardy Nutritionals offers, we figured out a long time ago that the mental health market was like, it's not just sell a supplement and goodbye, go have a good life.
Right, right,
This is a population that needs a little more support than that. So
right.
we offer free, it's crazy, but built into the price of the product, free consultation. So you can call and I'm the science team trains wellness advisors who will pick up the phone and talk you through your issues and how to use our products. It's kind of like health coaches specific to our products. Okay. And it's
Sure.
just because our market needs it. And so
Wow.
it's a great service, but we help people get through their issues,
Get through their stuff. Yeah.
and we learn a lot that way. We've seen what our products can do and
Yeah.
where they fail and what other products might be complementary to help overcome that and all that stuff. And so we can counsel on that. And I've forgotten your question now. I was going to tie this into the question.
We were talking about the correlation between central and autonomic nervous
Oh,
systems,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
you got into this.
No,
Yeah.
I can't remember how I got into that, but we
You give people more support, it sounds like,
yeah,
than just handing them a supplement and sending them on their way, and that's
yeah,
special. Not everybody does that. That's incredible.
yeah.
And, okay, so then is this a supplement line specifically for physicians only?
So we've thought about going that way, but we haven't. So no, you
Okay.
can get clinician referrals, and we do give discounts for clinician referrals. We're trying to drive it that way because we would like all that burden of customer support to be
Sure,
taken up by the clinician. We believe that's where it should reside, or some of it should at least. And
sure.
and the other reason we want to drive people to clinicians is a lot of people are taking psychiatric medications, and there's an interesting phenomenon that happens with this supplement that that's unexpected for most people, and that is it's potentiative and it has a displacement effect. So what happens is what the researchers think is happening, because this has been commented on in the literature, and we also believe this as the scientists at Hardy Nutritionals. What we think is happening is as the central nervous system upregulates with natural function, it
Mhm.
becomes more sensitive and more capable to the psychiatric drugs that are using, the medications that they're giving these people. And so the medications become more powerful,
Potent, yeah,
not because the oral dose has changed or even the blood dose, but because the cellular response is better. It's like
stronger,
stepping on the gas pedal of a little Honda Civic or like a Maserati, right? The
right,
the body, that the instrument is more capable because you're giving it what it needs. And so then you don't need as much of the
uh-huh,
giving these psychiatric drugs. They're really powerful substances, just a few
yeah,
milligrams, and it has these incredible effects on your
yeah,
brain and your perception, right?
yeah,
And so these are powerful substances. You don't need to slam the gas pedal on a
sure,
car of someone who's well nutrated. So
sure,
you need less and less. So as
mm,
people get well, they need less and less of the drugs. And if they don't reduce the drugs, they get more and more of the side effects, because it's essentially like they're overdosing, not because the dose has changed, but because their need
their
has
body,
reduced.
yeah, their
And
body has
so
adjusted,
the same dose becomes too much. And so that phenomenon is called potentiation. Micronutrients potentiate the drug. You see it with drug-drug interactions too, but this is
mm,
specifically nutrient-drug interactions. And so that we really want clinicians to be involved in this process, because there needs to be a titration of the drug, and
yeah,
that needs to be done well. And not a lot of people know how to do that well,
yeah,
because withdrawal syndromes and all these stuff that are drug related, like the drugs really cause a lot of problems. And some of these psychiatric drugs can be as hard to get off of as street drugs. And so we drive people that way. But the reason we haven't restricted our daily essential nutrients product line to health professional only sales is it's getting better, but especially like 2 decades ago when we started, there were a lot of psychiatrists that were just too close minded
yeah,
to even consider as a viable alternative,
mm,
or just a first line option. Even like I
sure,
said, clinically, we'd love to see, just try this first line. If it doesn't work, you can
mhm,
always go to drugs, but like it
yeah,
probably will work. And,
yeah, and then
at
maybe you'll
least to
have a
some
better outcome.
degree, and
Yeah,
that will be better for you, even if you do go to drugs.
sure,
And so even that mindset was just like 20 years ago, was just like, no. And so we thought it would just restrict access basically if we
yeah,
force it through clinicians.
that's
And
true.
so,
So you are open to all, which is awesome.
yep.
But if you are a clinician and you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, or you come to our Changing Life and Destiny conference in April and stop by, talk to Hardy Nutritionals, because this sounds like one of those really powerful tools for the toolbox. Should you be a practitioner or a clinician that can help people in this very essential, basic, foundational way? So, Dallin,
It
wow,
really is.
I could talk to you for hours, but we're not going to do that today. So, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much of your passion. I can hear it in your voice, your family story, your commitment to this and to this product line and to this family business, and to what I can only see as just heart work and soul work. That's what I knew when I met your people at that booth at that other conference. I was like, these are heart people, these are soul people. So I think that what you guys are doing is really incredible
Well,
for
and that
just
reminds me, Stephanie,
the
that
better
reminds
good.
me what I was going to say before about
Oh,
our
there you go.
wellness about our wellness advisors.
Mhm.
So we have hired a lot of our former customers, formerly on psych meds with bipolar diagnosis or other serious clinical diagnoses, not really reliable employees when they were our customers. They
Sure.
become excellent wellness advisors for talking other people through it. And
Oh,
so that we're not afraid to hire them because, like, honestly, we're not scared of these illnesses. A lot of people are
sure,
because
sure.
because it's not like a broken arm. You can't see the illness. It's
Right,
inside, right?
right, right.
And so people will just say, get over it. But to us, it is a very physical illness because we are giving physical inputs, these micronutrients, and seeing the changes clinically. And it brings the brain out of this mysterious psychological realm and puts it more where it should be as a physical organ that's
Mhm,
just very nutrient intense because it's a high
mhm.
energy organ. Like the
Yeah.
brain is 2% of your body weight and consumes 20% of your calories. It and so that's what I was gonna say about
Yeah.
the
I
wellness
love that.
advisor.
I love that because if you've got wellness advisors that have had the actual outcome, who
Mhm.
better to talk about your supplements? Wonderful. Dallin, thank you so much for your time today and your energy and your heart and your soul and your dad and your family for all that you went through. And we just can't wait to see you at the conference. So thank you for today.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Change Life Destiny podcast. If you loved what you heard, share it with a friend and follow us for more bold conversations and breakthrough ideas. Ready to take the next step? Visit changelifedestiny.com to join the movement. See you next time and keep diving in, learning, and leading the change.